Hi there, and welcome to this midweek edition of Gridiron TV, where we're going to run through the scores from this week's BAFA National Leagues. I'm Allan Price, and I'm joined once again by Stuart Young. Stuart, it was a great weekend of football, wasn't it?
It was brilliant. It was a really good weekend of football, Alan. At the end of the day, we're getting to the playoffs. Everybody's got everything to fight for now. People want to try and get there and try and sort of salvage their season and then try and get to the final as well. So there's some interesting scores coming out this weekend.
Yeah, and let's get straight into it with Premiership first of all. And you say interesting scores, and the most interesting by far was the London Derby. It was the Blitz against the Olympians, two very historic teams, but a very one-sided match. 80 points to nil to the Blitz. How do you describe that?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you look at the Blitz. They've had a great season in Europe again. They've just gone 8-1. They're probably the top point scorer in the whole of the league with 383 points, Alan. It's no surprising the London Olympians aren't the same as they used to be. Certainly lying, fourth in the Premiership South, having lost 4 games but won 3 games. They're doing okay, but it was really no surprise with the Blitz, to be honest.
Yeah, and this now sets up pretty much a replay from last year. We've got the Warriors and the Blitz facing off coming up, and yeah, as we're recording this, we're hearing breaking news of a very special event, a very surprise event that nobody really knew about, apart from the Warriors, with NFL legend Ray Lewis attending a 3-day mini camp and conducting the camp alongside the Warriors. So that must be such an honour, such a privilege for the Warriors to have that kind of preparation going into their next match.
It is, Alan, and to have someone like Ray Lewis, a future Hall of Famer, he's an absolute legend in the sport and one of the best linebackers ever to have played the game. And to even go down there and spend, an hour, a couple of hours with that guy, you would learn so much in that space of time. And well done to the Warriors for bringing him across, because at the end of the day, it doesn't only just help the Warriors, but it helps the whole image of the British game.
Yes, and we hope to hear as much information about that camp as possible, and we'll try and keep everybody updated through our website throughout the week, so stay tuned for that one. But back to the scores now from this past weekend. We've got another couple of Premiership results. We'll go up to the north this time, and it was the Mustangs facing the Bulls. Birmingham having a little bit of trouble recently in the past few weeks, and didn't get the best of it this weekend either, and Doncaster looked to be heading into the playoffs now with a 40 points to 12 victory.
Yeah, to be honest, Alan, it was one that you could predict quite easily. I mean, unfortunately, the Birmingham Bulls haven't been the team that they used to be again. A bit like the O's, they were always there in latter years, always challenging for the finals and whatnot. But the Doncaster Mustangs have had a fantastic season, sitting just behind the East Kilbride Pirates as well. And, at the end of the day, the Mustangs could still take the division as well. So, it's all to play for the up-and-coming next few games as well. So, well done to the Mustangs for that one.
And in amongst that competition, you've also got the Phoenix, who then march on with an 18-0 victory against the Rams. So putting pay to their season pretty much. But Tamworth still trying to fight for that playoff spot.
I think the Rams' season was over before the weekend's game, Alan, to be honest. But, I mean, look at the Phoenix. The Phoenix are still pushing as well. It's a 3-horse race, let's be honest, between the Pirates and Mustangs and the Phoenix. The Pirates look favourites at the moment. They're at home this weekend. Certainly see them winning that one. And if they do, certainly, hopefully it could, clinch the division for them. But, Phoenix still a shout. Let's not write them off just yet. Still all to play for.
Yeah, the one match, we lost yet another match this weekend. It was the Aztecs and the Warriors. But as we mentioned, I'm sure the Warriors will get plenty of coaching and plenty of inspiration from their mini camp to make up for it for their next game.
It is. It's unfortunate this weather recently has really paid havoc to the fixture list. And some teams, just aren't going to be able to fit the fixtures in, Alan. If they do, it's going to be a certainly tight end to the season.
So let's move on to Division 1 now. A fairly busy schedule. We'll jump to a couple of Saturday games first, and it was the Warriors taking victory over the Mavericks. They're, as you mentioned, setting up for a very busy end-of-year schedule with a double-header coming up, in fact, to try and fit in some games. But a win is a win, and it's going to push them closer and closer to playoffs.
It is. I mean, the Southfield Warriors were also Division 2 finalists and winners last year, and certainly I spoke to Geraint Roberts at the start of the season about how they were going to cope in Division 1. Do you know something? They've done a great job of it. They're 5-3 for the season so far, just behind the East Kent Mavericks. Will they make it to the playoffs? I don't think so. I mean, I think the Sussex Thunder and the Berkshire Renegades are certainly on form at the moment, and it's going to be a tough ask for them, to try and reach the playoffs.
Yeah, and we'll be speaking with them, in fact, later in the week, so stay tuned for that, and we'll try and find out what their thoughts are on how the season has gone and if they think they have a chance of making it into the postseason. But in a mid-table clash in Division 1 Central and South, we had the Thrashers and the Cats. A low-scoring game, this one, with the Thrashers taking it 7-0, so it's a consolation to move as high up the table as possible.
Well, the Hampshire Thrashers, let's be honest, yeah, that's all it is, Alan. It's a consolation game, really. They're 3-7 for the season. Okay, 3-7 for the season. It's not too bad. I mean, finishing bottom, I'm sure they didn't want to be there at the beginning of the season. They're behind the Kent XLs and behind the Cambridgeshire Cats. I think it was more hurtful for the Cats to lose that one. Had they won it, could they have been in a shout for the playoffs? Possibly. I think that game put end to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one more from Central before we head north. We've got the Essex Spartans facing off against Kent. A close one here, but it was Kent that took this one by 3 points. So a pretty miserable season for the Spartans overall, wouldn't you agree?
It is, yeah. It certainly has been a terrible one. The Spartans, 1-7 for the season, they're not doing very well. And these Kent Mavericks, by winning that, is obviously kept their season alive as well. It was a must-win game for them. They're only just behind the Berkshire Renegades and certainly just behind the Sussex Thunder with a game still to play. So if they win that, and then they're certainly within playoff contention.
Well, looking at the North fixtures now, we've got the Nighthawks, the team everybody is willing on to turn their season around, and up against the West Coast Trojans, and in the first half, they actually had the lead, and then a rather bizarre last few moments of the first half for the Trojans managed to turn it around with 3 scores and then push on through the second half to finally end it out 56 points to 26. That does a world of good for the Trojans, but it's a bit of a heartbreaker for the Nighthawks to have the lead and then to lose it.
It is, and if you asked me at the start of the season, Alan, would I see the Nighthawks without a win? I'd have said absolutely not a chance. You and I have played against the Nighthawks on several occasions when we played for the Edinburgh Wolves. And they were a fantastic side then. Unfortunately, I don't know what's happened to them in recent years, but they're struggling to even get a win together. And it's unfortunate because they're a good bunch of guys down the Merseyside. They've got a very good organisation, very good setup, and good facilities. But then, let's give credit to Gary McNay and the Trojans as well. 6-1 for the season. Runners up in Division 2 national final last year. And you had a feeling they were going to go to the playoffs. They've got a very good setup and a very good side at the Trojans. So, I don't see anybody else taking that division other than the Trojans.
And lastly, up north, we've got the Wolverines and the Revolution. Wolverines taking this one 16-14, so close game. And what does that do for their playoff hopes?
Well, I mean, the Revolution and obviously the Wolverines, it keeps the Wolverines within touching distance. They're certainly not out with it in any stretch of imagination. They've got Nottingham Caesars, who've got a game on them in 7-2 at the moment. And if they can just try and win out the last few games, and then they've got the potential to do that, but they must win them. They're must-win games now for the Lancashire Wolverines. And again, we've played against them, Alan. We know exactly the calibre, the kind of side that they've got and the setup they've got. And they're well capable of causing an upset here. Absolutely.
So let's move on to Division 2 now, and the bulk of the games. We'll start with the version 2.0, in their own words. The Peterborough Saxons continuing to dominate, 35-0 this time against the Gladiators. So they're certain for a very high placement in the playoffs.
They are, and all credit to Willie White and the guys down there, and Ryan Toon, the general manager. They've got a fantastic setup at the Saxons. They've recently just moved into their new stadium, the Peterborough Rugby Club Stadium, which is not only good for the team, but it's good to show other British teams that the way forward. Getting excellent facilities to play such a great game of football. But congratulations to the guys that they're in the playoffs now. I think they're going to go this undefeated as well. I genuinely believe that they've got that good a team and that good a setup. They will go 10-0 for the season.
And they're certainly going to be the ones to worry about for anyone coming up against them in the playoffs. And following up close behind them, you've got the Pathfinders. Again, another victory. So they're chasing up the Saxons closely, and they'll hope to have as good a position in the playoffs as possible. And they've got the double header now against the Blue Raiders to finish the season. So do you think they're going to win out?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, the Pathfinders, we've interviewed them recently, Alan, and they're very optimistic, and the players that they've got, they're very confident in putting out their team against anybody. Let's be honest. I don't think they're not going to make it. I generally believe they'll win the next couple of games, and I believe they will join the Saxons in the playoffs as well. And again, it's going to be hard for any teams up against the Pathfinders because they're a well organised, very, very strong squad. So I don't see anybody else taking the playoffs other than them.
Yeah. And then into the Central Division now. Let's start with the Titans. So one of the contenders to go through in a playoff spot in the Central Conference, and doing themselves a credit for a 30-0 victory against the Surge. So they have Division 1 experience now back in Division 2. You must know that they would want to get back into Division 1. Yeah,
the Manchester Titans, again, another team that I've played against, they're so hungry to win every game that they play. And that division is so wide open, Alan. It really, really is. We're talking about the Chester Romans and the Sheffield Predators in a wee minute, but, look at the top three teams here. Chester Romans 6-0 and 2, Sheffield Predators 5-0 and 2, and the Manchester Titans 5-1-1. It's wide open. As long as they can win all their games for the remaining season, I can't see past the Titans pipping it. I think the Predators will win that division, but I genuinely believe it'll be between them and the Romans to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Romans. They're still chasing hard a victory against the Presidents on the weekend, so they're really looking for that number 2 spot, if not the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I mean, of course they are. I mean, the DC President, again, Jeff Rutter's done a great job bringing a new team into the league with great facilities as well. They had a couple of really good games on the bounce where they won. Unfortunately, they've come up against a more experienced team. I mean, bear in mind, the Chester Romans are probably one of the most established teams in British football, going for many, many years. And, the Romans, again, a team that I've played against and I had experience going against them. They weren't the strongest sides, but you look at them now. I mean, what a turnaround in the coaching staff there and the backroom staff for basically making them playoff contenders.
Yeah, and finishing off in the Central, you've got the Bombers now trying to rally their season. A little bit of a rough start early on, but now coming in with some big scores, and another one this weekend, 53 points to 8 against the Railroaders. So they've turned something around in these last few games.
They have. Again, Al, you're right. They didn't have a great start to the season, but they've rallied round. Cracking score against the Crewe Railroaders, 53-8. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I really think that the trouble they went into the start of the season, not winning too many games, I think that the top three, as I mentioned here, the Romans, the Predators and the Titans, I think they're just too strong. But, who's to say? Funny things have happened in football. But it would take a momentous push to try and make the playoffs. But I generally think that's their season now. I don't think they're going to be able to make it, and just to try and win the last couple of games.
And then moving a little bit further south, we'll move into the West Division, and 2 games. We've got the Cornish Sharks upsetting the leaders, the Oxford, 16-0, whilst we've got the Bobcats beating out the Apache 19 points to 0. So keeping it quite open there as well.
Yeah, it's quite an open. It's the smallest division in the whole of British football, but none. Let's not take that away from it. It's still a strong division here, and yeah, the Sharks needed to win that one. They really, really did, and it's made it wide open now. And if they can go and try and win the remaining games, there's nothing to say that the Sharks can't take the title in the Division 2 West. Still, all Saints to lose at the end of the day, but will they lose it? I don't think so. I think both teams will head to the playoffs. But again, nonetheless, attacking result for them.
Absolutely. Now let's head north to the last couple of games of the weekend, and Glasgow Tigers trying to stay in the hunt with a convincing victory against the Border Reivers, who've had a rough season, and another rough game, 57 points to 0. Glasgow doing it through the air and on the ground several times over.
Yeah, I feel so sorry for the Carletta Border Reivers. We've met the guys before, Alan. They're a really good bunch of guys, absolutely 100% committed. And as much as it might take a thrashing every week, they still come out next game prepared to win it, and that's what we like to see. The team's full of heart, And they've only been going 2 years, let's not forget, and hopefully next year we might be able to see them, win their very first game of the season. And, fingers crossed that happens for them.
And the last game, it was the one that we were actually attending as Gridiron TV, is a very old northern rivalry, Dundee Hurricanes hosting the Edinburgh Wolves. And to be at this game, we were doing live Twitter updates, keeping everyone informed, and it really proved up to it was a title decider essentially, and it was just as exciting to watch. Scores going back and forth, big plays by both teams, and such an exciting finish as well.
It was. I mean, let's just go back there, Alan. Let's not say that the title's clinched there for the Wolves. Far from it. The Wolves have got a massive game coming up this weekend against the Clyde Valley Blackhawks, and if Edinburgh win it, then they're champions. But if they don't, then it's all down to the last game where the Blackhawks play Glasgow and Edinburgh travel to Carlisle. But the game, back to the game on Sunday. Yeah, what a fantastic, one of the best games of football I've actually ever seen. It was to and fro. Dundee 27 up at one point, and Edinburgh Wolves 3 scores on the trot without reply from Dundee. And then, dying seconds in the match, on a third down, Dundee kicked for a field goal and missed. Do you know something? That's football, and that's what happens. Pressure was on. They didn't quite get the 3 points that they needed to win the game. But do you know something? Dundee played amazingly well. Anybody could have won that game. But Edinburgh took their chances and again, 1 by 1 point, take them to 7-1.
Absolutely. Credit to both teams, and credit to all teams around the country who've had success. And it's really shaping up to be a very exciting year for UK football. When we look back at the beginning of the year, I'm sure we didn't expect it to be as close as it is. And these last couple of weekends are certainly going to keep people very focused, and as we try and figure out who it is that's going to make the playoffs and eventually make Britball.
Yeah, absolutely. They've still got everything to play for. Some teams out there, again, there's teams who are already through, like the Wolves and the Saxons, and there's certainly not going to be any easy playoff games whatsoever, whether you're travelling down south or you're travelling up to Scotland. It doesn't really matter. I think when you get to this stage, yes, you see injuries start creeping in now and again, but I don't think that's going to affect much teams. I think really teams are going to want to take it all, and the playoff games will be exciting to watch.
Well, that rounds up the scores from last weekend, and let's just take a quick look at this weekend coming. Some key fixtures standing out. Stuart, let's just run through a couple of them, and I'll maybe ask you for some predictions if that's all right.
Yeah, no worries.
So let's look at the Premiership first of all. And before we go to the big one, let's have a look at Bristol Aztecs versus London Olympians. So both had a couple of heavy losses this year, but otherwise have done okay. And it's a sort of a battle for third and fourth place in the Southern Premiership. So how do you think that one's going to
go? Again, it's a hard one to call. The O's on the back of a beating from the Blitz are going to be hurt by that, and they're going to want to bounce back and try and give themselves a little bit of pride. Now, bearing in mind, the Aztecs are 4-3 and the Olympians are 3-4. So, certainly, whoever wins this one, it's going to make it even keel, heading into the last few games of the season. My gut feeling, I think the Aztecs will take this one. I think it's going to be a very close game. I think the Aztecs will take it by 7 points.
7 points, okay. Now in Division 2, let's have a look at a very important game, in fact, the Edinburgh Wolves versus the Clyde Valley Blackhawks. As we mentioned before, potentially a title decider, or one that certainly plays a significant role in who's going to go through to the playoffs from the north. So what about that one, Stuart?
It is. I mean, the Blackhawks have already beaten the Wolves this year. They're doing a fantastic season so far. Edinburgh haven't lost at home. They're unbeaten there just now. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for the Blackhawks to win this one. I think the Wolves are up. They're upbeat after a win against Dundee. Doing a double over Dundee. I genuinely believe they're going to want to win a division on Saturday. I really think they do. I know the guys personally. I know how pumped up they are for this. I genuinely think the Wolves are going to win this by at least 14 points.
14 points, a big turnaround from their first encounter.
Yeah, I think so. They're at home. They're doing really well at home. They've scored many points at home at the moment, and I just think that they're just a little bit too strong for the Blackhawks. But you never know. The Blackhawks, caused an upset at their home grounds, and again, as I said before, Alan, it's football. Anything can happen.
Absolutely, it's going to be an exciting one. And now moving into Division 1, we've got a rematch now. The Mavericks and the Warriors. So Warriors winning out last weekend. Can they do it again?
Do you know what? Yeah, Alan, a close game, 6 points. Not much in it. It's a long way to travel for the Mavericks to South Wales. I think the Mavericks will sneak this one. I think they've got that slight advantage where they're slightly ahead of the Warriors in the league. I think the Mavericks will take this one. I think it's going to be at least 14 points in this one between the Mavericks and the Warriors. I don't think it's going to be as close as the last game.
Okay, that's a good shout. And then moving further up north, we've got the top two teams, the Trojans and the Caesars, both having fantastic records so far. But who's going to win out on this one? Who's going to take the scores here?
Again, this is another one. It's so difficult to call. The season have had a great season. If they win this, and then obviously it's even Stevens, both 7-2. If the Trojans win it, and then obviously they're 7-1. I can't see anybody stopping the Trojans at home. They're unbeaten just now. It's going to be very, very difficult. It's going to take a good team to beat the Trojans at the moment. I think the Trojans will sneak it. I'll go for 7 points in this one. I don't think there's going to be much in it. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. But I think the Trojans will take it by at least 7 points.
Okay, so try and extend their lead at the top.
Yep.
And now we come to the big one, the rematch that surprised maybe a couple of people, not everybody the first time round. The Warriors and the Blitz, the top two teams. Is the presence of Ray Lewis going to spur them on to get the double over the Blitz, or did they already have the inspiration to do that?
Absolutely not. I think, everybody will be excited at the arrival of Ray Lewis to give them some sort of tips and hints and a little bit of excellent training as well. I don't think that's going to really sort of play havoc. I don't think that's what it takes to spur the Warriors players on. I think the fact that it's the Blitz they're playing against is enough to spur these players on. They're 8-0 for the season. Okay, the Blitz are the highest scoring team in the whole of the league. But I think the Warriors are going to take this one again. And I think they're going to take it quite convincingly. I'm going to go at least 14 points in this one. I know it's close to last time, but I think the Warriors are on a roll at the moment, unbeaten. And I think they're going to continue going unbeaten in this league.
Okay, well, there's some good predictions there. But if any of you disagree with us or agree with us, then feel free to get in touch, either through our Twitter or at Gridiron_TV. You can also contact us through our Facebook page at Gridiron TV. Leave any comments of any games, any particular highlights you think they're going to be happening this weekend. You can also go to our website at www.gridirontv.co.uk, where you can find information about the full fixture list for this weekend, as well as all of the previous results and our episodes and interviews. Alternatively, if you're out at one of the games, you can access our mobile website at m.gridirontv.co.uk, where you'll get live updates for results. So that concludes our midweek roundup of the scores and reviews. So from myself, Allan Price, and from Stuart Young, thanks for listening.
Thank you.